So in this video, I'm gonna explain how commands work, how they behave, and what can affect them. So whenever you press a button, it'll load a list of all the commands, and it'll go down the list, check at the millisecond, see if they have expired, and it will execute them. For example, if I go down this list straight when I press it, it'll execute all the 0 ones. So it'll go down, it'll do this one, it'll do this one, and it'll skip those two because they have 4,000, 5,000 millisecond. And I'll just keep going until the list is over. And after that, so there's only 2 left now, and it'll do this until all of them have expired. So basically it'll do it again, but like, since it's gonna do it maybe like 1 frame later, like 30 millisecond later, it's not gonna do anything until it reach that time. And then after 4,000 millisecond, it'll do that one. After 5,000 millisecond, it'll do that one. So that's how they behave in terms of time. So that means the order they're in is less relevant than their millisecond. For example, in this example, the last one will happen first, followed by the second one, and then the first one. There's 3 commands that can affect other commands, such as turning them on or off, and that's the compare statement. Well, technically there's 6, but like you'll understand why there's only 3. There's the compare skip if, and that will cancel all the next one if the statement is true. There's end if, that will cancel the entire button, like it'll just stop there, right there, if the statement is true. And there's redo if, that'll turn back on some commands if the statement is true. So with that knowledge, you can create a button that will do something different every time you press it. For example, if I add mat change, so mat change is very important. They're basically variables that you can use like programming language. So I named this one whatever I want, turn on, and I XOR it by 1. So this will be 0, then 1, 0, then 1 every time you press the button. And then after that, you add skip if turn on is not equal 0. So meaning if it's 0, it'll skip the next part. And then I paste source change visible, stream ongoing. So basically the little loot box that I have on the side here, it'll turn on if it's 1. And then I can just copy this, put it here, and then invert it. So if it's not 1, it'll turn it off. And then so now the steps, I need to put those to 1. So you see the green region here, that means they're affected by the skip statement. So click done, and if I bring this right here, now my button that I just made, I'll turn it on off. And you can do a bunch of things with that. You can put as many as you want and just make them reset, and you can make some very great effect with this. So that's basically how skip statement work, turning off comments. But now there's the redo one, which will re-enable comments, and this one can make button go forever. I'll give you an example now of what you can do. So I'm gonna give you an example of like a blinking button that'll blink forever as long as the variable is 1. So if I go in and I create a new button and I take its ID 544 and I edit the comments that I just made and I add trigger button. So this will trigger the button that the ID is associated with. So that one I just made. So 544, set the queuable to false, and I click done. So whenever I press that button, it'll also press that button, right? Actually, I need to set this to equal and not equal to, because that was in reverse. It was still working, but it was in reverse, right? And after that, I'm gonna memorize this, the button ID 548 for this one. I'm gonna go in the new button I made. I'm gonna add the redo statement that I was mentioning. Skip redo if turn on is equal 1. So this will like basically redo the step forever as long as the turn on is on, and affect self true. So this is it'll turn itself back on as well. So next I want to do end, skip end. If turn on is equal to 0, then it'll cancel the entire button, and that's where it's gonna end. So from that point on, I want to like make it so like it'll change color depending on one variable, and that variable is gonna be time. There's a built-in variable you can use. So change mat value to value. So this will be my value check time, and I'll load the value equal to elapsed time. So this is a built-in variable. So this one's always there. You can put that in. I could put that one there, but that wouldn't do anything. So I'm loading elapsed time into check time, and then I'll add change value, check time. And I want to make this one mod itself. If you don't know what a modulo is, don't worry about it. So mod this one by 2. So it'll basically it'll go from 0 to 2. It'll never reach 2. Every time it reaches 2, it'll reset to 0. So after that, what I want to do is add a skip statement. Skip if check time is smaller than 1. I'll skip one step, and then I had modify button. So modify button is basically just changing you can change color, the text, and all that stuff of a button. So I'm gonna 548. That's the ID of the button that I made previously. I'll make that red. It'll blink from red. No text, that means no change of text. Nothing here. -1, that means default. So, and then I copy those two. Oops. Paste it here. And then I change this one higher than equal. And I make this green instead of red. So basically what this does is it'll skip one step if the check time is under 1, and if it's higher than 1, then I'll skip this one. So basically it'll go red, green, red, green, red, green, because it's looking at the time. So, and then I want this to like redo the entire thing. So 7th step. So you see like the gradient of color changes here, right? So I click done. And then I want to go back in my other button and I want to add a modify button to when it's 0 technically. So modify button 548, and I want to set that to default. To set a button back to its default color, you just make all this minus, you put no text, and you leave this one blank, this one -1. And then I put that here, and I had step here, so it skips this as well. Done. Now, so if everything is right, when I press that button that I made, this one, it should start blinking. And it does. So it'll start blinking every time the loot box is on screen, and it'll start blinking. Then I click it, it returns back to default, the loot box is gone. Then I press it again, and now it's blinking again. It's gonna blink as long as I don't press it again. It's never gonna stop, because that button is always going. This one right here. And you see, like, as soon as I press it, it resets itself, right? So this is just an example of the complexity that you can expect from comments. So the next thing I want to touch on is the duration of a button and when a button actually ends. For example, if I go on this button, now I change it so that it turns on the loot box image when I press it, and 3 seconds later it turns it back off. So if I go on the Stream Deck and I click that, you'll see that like there's a clock effect around the button now to like indicate to you that the button is currently going and how long there's left on it. Like, this is not 100% accurate, because you, like, as you can see, like, you can affect the button, make it last forever, so there's no way for it to be fully accurate, but in this case it is, right? So now if I go back here and I add end statement, since you can force it to end, so I can put anything here, like it doesn't matter. The non-existing variable will always return 0, so if it's equal to 0, then it'll end the entire button. So I make it at 1500 seconds. So click done, and bring that back on screen. So now you'll see that like it'll make it halfway through and it'll end right away. So you know when a button ends, when that happens on the Stream Deck, the button is over. As soon as you see this little watermark, water drop effect, that means the button is over, right? And there's also commands that can affect that duration, along with the keyboard macros will also affect that duration, and sound effect as well, because they have a delay on it. Like all of them have a delay, and they're all tied together technically. Like they're not comments, but they're all part of it. The button is not gonna end until everything is over. The commands that can affect it are source motion, all the source motion. There's also a map transition, value transition, and there's a overtime. Overtime is basically meant for that. That's like the only reason it exists. And those are shown accurately. For example, if I'm gonna paste this one I made, it's a motion position. It's gonna move the loot box across the screen. So I click done on that, and I'll move it over 3 seconds, and it started at 0, so it'll last 3 seconds. So if I make this come on screen, and now I click that button, now the loot box moves, and you see the duration fine. So the duration is going to be accurate most of the time, just not when you actually modified it yourself. The reason why I talk about the duration and why it's important is because you cannot press a button as long as it's already going. So for example, like if you have a trigger, if you put a Twitch trigger, add a Twitch trigger, and I add this for the chat, like someone that like makes the trigger happen won't be able to make it happen again as long as the button's already going. That's why there's a checkbox here, add to queue, so that when the button ends, it'll start right away. But you need to watch out with that, because I've seen people, they put one comment at like 0 seconds with no delay, with no time duration on it, and like they're wondering why it didn't happen again. That's because it did happen. It just happened instantly, and like because people seem to think that LioranBoard can see the duration of a video, which is not very possible. But yeah, that's the thing you need to keep in mind when triggering comments through Twitch. So the next thing I want to talk about is mat variable and what you can do with them. You can actually insert a mat variable in any parameter in the comments. By parameter, I mean those that are all under the parameter. So that doesn't include delay or the action. So you can take any variable and insert it here, but there's a way to do it. Okay, you don't just type, if I have the variable pause X, I don't just put that right here. I have to put $sign, well, $$ pause X $/ and that's gonna put whatever is in that variable right here. For example, what I can do is I'll pause Y here, and I'll make a variable pause Y and pause X, and I'll randomize it. So pause X between 200 and 500, right? And don't allow float. And I'll copy that, I'll paste it, I'll make the same one but Y. I'll bring that one down. So now it's gonna move the loot box to whatever random position I have every time I press it. So let's test this. Okay, so if I bring this on screen, I press that button, the loot box moved there, and I press it again, I'll move there that time. And you can use this to do very complex stuff. For example, on my deck I have this button, let's take that away. I have this button, the hyper beam, which basically modifies a filter. It sends a comment through OBS WebSocket and modifies the filter to change the hue on basically the hue will just keep changing. And if I press that, my camera is flashing rainbow. Now, there's better way to do that effect. I know, like that's an overcomplicated way of doing that, but that's the way I used back then, and I don't feel like changing it. But you can do some very complex effect with that. I do animate my stream with that. I do a lot of things with the variable change and sending them to OBS, either filters or source. You can change a media source to be a new media source all of a sudden, so you can change video on the go like that. It's a great way, and later I'll show you an example of like random things you can do. You can randomly pick videos and stuff like that to have them play. There's a lot of great things you can do with that. And that's basically a good overview of what you can do with the commands. So I'll leave it to you to like discover things you can do, make it. If you're a programmer, you probably already know how to use this. You'll be like, yeah, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do some crazy stuff. So go ahead, show them on the Discord, link it down in the description for LioranBoard, the Discord, and I'll see you guys next time.